Hello everyone, welcome to Moonkids Tutorials. Today we'll discuss about databases, tables, default databases in Databricks. Now this is your main layout. Let's go to the relevant section. Okay, we have three personas, data science, machine learning, and SQL here. Now we go to data, and the data option gives us a Hive metastore. Now, for some guys who have started this lesson straight away without going to the previous one, if you can't see this browse DBFS on your layout, then please come over here, go to admin settings, workspace settings, advanced, and DBFS file browser. That by default is disabled, but you have to enable it. So if I disable it, if I refresh it, then if I go to the data section, I will not be able to see the DBFS tab over there. So in order to get it back, you have to go to admin settings, workspace settings, advanced, DBFS file browser enabled, then you have to refresh it. Once you refresh, you go back to data, you'll be able to get this browse DBFS tab. So if you click here, now you will get the options of going to the file system of Databricks. Now, what we have here is Hive Metastore. Now, Hive Metastore is a database that holds some metadata about our data. So metadata is like, the tables and all the path to the data, which is either within the Databricks file system or is it outside, about the table definition and all. So it is like a meta store about now by default you will get one default database over here. For samples also Databricks provided. You want to play around with these samples and all. So you can go to find table details and permissions, and okay, there is a trips table in this database. So go to sample data. So if you want to play around with the samples one, you can find this useful if you want to do some testing stuff or execute some commands. Now, coming back to the Hive Metastore, so this is by default you have. Now, we'll find out how we can create databases, how we can find out which database we are at, and how we can create tables in R. So this is a good document of Spark, which is at this moment is 3.5 or 4.0 is the latest one. I will give you the link of this document also with the video. I'll let you know how to use this document to find out if we have to use for SQL or for Python or for Java. I'll give you detail in short time. Now coming back over here, we want to create a new Jupyter file and we'll test over there. Lesson 2. Let's create a notebook. Databases. Okay, it already exists. Schemas and tables. Okay, let's see if our notebook is attached over here with the correct one. Let it attach. Now let's see if it is running fine. Hello. Okay, so our notebook is connected with the default cluster. It is working fine. Now find out some basic commands over here. What database do we have? How to create databases? How to create tables under that database, and how to switch databases. Now, first let's just find out how many databases we have with show databases. Kindly note this one. If I execute this command, it will fail. Why will it fail? Because it is giving a Python. Why it is Python? Because on the notebook level, we have picked up Python. So if I execute this one, it will fail because it expects the SQL. Now there are two ways to run this command. Either you come over here, write SQL, and this will change this from Python to SQL. If you have not noticed before, I'll delete this. It is Python. Why? Because on the notebook level, it is Python. So either I have to do this to switch to SQL, or if we are playing with SQL only, then let's switch the whole notebook to SQL. Now, once we do this, then we don't need to use this percentage SQL. If I remove this one, if you see here, the color of the syntax, the words have also changed. Why? Because we are in the SQL. Now, if I switch to Python here, you'll find it has grayed out, it has blacked out. So now this particular cell is on Python, but we don't want to use Python here, so we are removing it. Now, if I execute this command, I'll get the list of databases. So at this moment, I only have default database. Now let me make a duplicate of this one. Let me go to data. Okay, this is default. And these are set of tables we have. But don't worry, we'll create a new one. We'll find out how we can create tables and how we can create new databases as well. Now, if underneath this database, if I want to find out how many tables we have, so there's a command called show tables. Now, this will give you the list of all the tables underneath this default database. Now, going back, so how we can create tables and how we can create databases. So there's only one database, and by default we are at default. So let's find out how to create new databases first. There's a command called create database if not exist and test db underscore one. Now you can't remember those syntaxes by heart. So what you have to do is you come over here. Now this is the Spark documentation. Come to the programming guides and you'll find SQL data frames and data sets. Come to SQL reference and then to SQL syntax. Now all the DDLs, DMLs and data retrieval query, all these things are available over here. This is the latest one, but if you use this particular URL, you will always be landing up in the latest one, be it is 3.4.0 or some latest version uh, by Spark, you will get the latest version here. Now, if I go to the create database. Now, if you see the database and schema are used interchangeably, so you can use either one of them, create database, if not exist and database name. There are certain other things you can also give like comment location with DB properties, up to you. But if you want to experiment something, come down and these are the few commands what you can run. So let's pick up this command, bring over here and create database if not exist customer DB underscore one. Now let me go back and find out how many databases we have. Databases, do we have one? We have one. If I come to this data section, then also under Hive we get one default only. So if I create this one, what will happen then? Let's execute this command. Okay, so now we should have two databases, customer DB1 and default. Let's find out. Execute the command show databases. Now we got customer DB1 and default. Let's come over here. We have to refresh it. So now you find out that we have created another database over here. Now there will not be any table as of this moment because we have not created it. But let's find out how to create those tables and how to switch on the databases. Now, there is one command called select current database. Now, when you execute this command, it will show you which database by default you are in. You are in default. Now, if I want to switch on the other one which we have created, where the name is customer DB1, if I execute this statement of use this database, customer DB1. Now if I execute the command of select current database, it will give me the customer DB1, not the default one. Let me execute this one. So now we have customer DB1. So customer DB1 is the one which we are in the latest database in. So if we create any kind of a table over here or views or whatever we do, it will by default be created under database 1. So if I execute this select customer database, sorry, current underscore database, it gives me DB1. Now go back over here in the Spark section, and if I want to write some insert statement commands, so I'll go to data definition. This is create databases. We have already seen for DML statements. Let's go to insert table. The syntax is written over here. In details, if you want to pick up what exactly these things are, you can keep going on. The partition is very important, which we will pick up in the subsequent lessons. Now, partition is something which will partition your database. If you know about RDBMS databases, then you used to define partitions in Oracle also, where the whole database was partitioned based on the key you provide. So a similar thing what you can also do over here as well. Now, let's pick up one of the command, which is creating a database, creating a table as well as inserting the values in it. So let's create this table and the value. Let's put in different cells. Now, if you see the current database we are at is current database, which is DB underscore 1. Now, if I create this table over here, it will be created under DB1, not by default. So let me switch to default first, because that is by default you will be getting. You don't have to create database always. So if I use default, now if I use this command of select current database, I will be getting default. So if I create this table here, let me write default. So we'll be finding out if we execute the same command in both the databases, then where we can find the tables. Now, these are the columns we have, name and address. Now this is using Parquet means that the files what will be created to store the definitions and the data or whatever the table needs will be in the Parquet format. Now you can provide CSV also here, ORC here also, whatever format you want, but Parquet is the good one because it stores lots many information and it's a binary file. So providing Parquet is a better option. Now partition by student ID, like if we create anything, then the database will be split up by the student ID. Let me execute this command first. Now create table, this command is created in default. Now, if I see which table, which database I am at it is showing me default. Now, let me find out what tables exist in default. Show tables. It has created student default under default. If I go back here, if I see default, if I refresh this one, data, default, students default. So it has created a table over here. Now, is this table must be empty because we have not uploaded any data. Columns, we have these columns. Now, if I insert data in this one, tables not found because we have changed the name of the table to students default. Let me change to student default. Let's execute this. Okay, so we got this data now. Now there are two ways we can do that, which is select star from which table we are, students default. So we get this data, and another way to go back over here, use the sample data, and we get this one. Now, if you see here, were in the default database. Now, if I use which databases I got, we have databases, customer DB and default. Let's switch to customer DB now. Customer DB underscore one. Now, which database we are at now? Show databases. We have the list of databases over here, which is this one. Let me find out that which current database we have. Current database. So we are at customer DB1. Now, if I pick up the same commands of creation and insertion records, and if I change the name of table to customer, and if I pick up the insert command, we have to change the name of the table. Students underscore customer, students underscore customer. Now, if I execute this one, then the table will be created underneath customer DB table database. There is nothing over here. Let me execute this command. Okay, so let's find out. Customer DB, we got students customer table over here. Do we have data? We don't have any data. Now go back here, execute this command. Now come over here. If you see data, the data has come up over here. Now we have seen how to create new databases, how to create tables, and how to switch among databases. So you can switch on any of the database you want, and you can create tables and you can load data over there. Finally, once you're done with that, you can execute drop database command also. Database, if exists, then whatever database you want to remove. Which database we were at? Customer DB, customer DB, and if we say cascade, then it will remove all the objects underneath this database. So if I execute this command, now if I come over here, so customer DB is gone. But you might have noticed that if I say show databases again, it will not show anything regarding that customer DB. But if I do select customer current database, it will still show me the customer DB because we were there when we executed this command. So if I switch to default and execute this, then it will not show any traces of customer DB. So if I do select current database, then it is default. And if I say show databases, then again it is by default. So this is the way you can create schema tables, and then you can create tables over there. You can insert data into the tables. So this is the small lecture on databases and tables. In the next lecture, I'll show you the differences between the manage and the external table. But before we go, let's find some more thing about the details of the table. Now, if I go to show tables, we have tables student default. Now, if I want to see the detail of this table, I have the option of describe students default. So it will give me the information about the table. But if we want some more information about the table, like where the files of this particular tables are stored, then we can use the option of extended. Now describe extended default gives me the information about the columns as well as the files, the Type is managed. I will explain you later what is the difference between managed and external. Provider is Parquet because we have mentioned that we want files to be stored in the Parquet, and this is the location of all the files related to this table. So if you want to see where the files are, you can go to DB utils. Now if you see here, I'm writing a Python command on a SQL, it will fail. So if I say fs ls and if I give the whole path, if I execute this one, it will fail because it is a Python command. Now to switch to this, let me write here Python. Now it is fine. Now it has switched to Python. Now if I execute this command, it will give me a file listing underneath this directory where all the files related to this table is stored. Let's make it more pretty by adding display function. Once I execute this one, I'll get in a tabular form which looks prettier. So this is a place where the path is given. These are the files. Now student ID 111. If we had created one more entry of that ta table, sorry, record with a different ID, it would create another record. Now if I do here 2 and if I here me more and if I execute this command, table not found customer table. Okay, I think we have removed this one already. So let's find out where is the command of table where we were using by default. So this is default, insert in default. Let's find out. Okay, student should be default because that was a different table. If I execute this command, okay, it has executed. Now if I go back, find the listing of files, let's find out what we get. We get two files now. Why we get two files? Because our table is partitioned among, uh, based on the student ID. So if we have 10 IDs, we will have 10 partitions created. But if we update any single record with the same key, then nothing will happen. So hope you've enjoyed the lesson today. Let's meet in the next lessons. We'll talk about manage external, then we'll talk about how to read the files from the folder or specific file, be it in any format or JSON or Parquet or any format file we will read it. Hope you enjoyed this session and let's meet them in the next session soon. Thanks for watching Moon Kids.